You hosted him many times in your dining room. You gave him your undivided attention. Like many people across the country, you may have enjoyed Tshamano Makhadi's reports on e-News. But what you don't know is that behind this multi-award-winning journalist, there's a painful journey of a little boy who had to endure degrading conditions in Limpopo, attending classes under a tree. He appeared on national television. He covered the big headlines. By the mid-2000s, he had become a familiar face to the South African public.
Tshamano Makhadi, eNews, Johannesburg.
In his heart, Tshamano Makhadi always knew he loved telling stories. But his childhood never guaranteed him the spotlight in front of the camera. Born in 1980 in the village of Hasentumule in Limpopo, Tshamano was the youngest of 6 siblings.
My mother and father, they were not educated. In fact, my mother she's never been to school. They lived a very ordinary life. My parents were very strict. My mother in particular, she wanted all of us as their children to get at least an education.
Despite his mother's wishes, education didn't come easy for Tshamano. He spent the better part of his primary schooling under terrible conditions.
We used to attend under a tree, even in cold winter season. Some of the classes were built of mud and wood. So it was not an easy thing, really. But I just had to make the best out of the situation.
With no electricity in the village, doing his homework was always hard. One by one, he watched his classmates give up on school.
They dropped out simply because of those conditions. But we were fortunate enough just to have people around you who would push you far beyond the limit and just say to you, you know what, it's going to be okay one day.
With his parents' encouragement, he pushed on, finally matriculating in 1999.
That was the moment when you feel like, you know what, I have been rewarded for all the hardships that I went through. And I just knew from that point that nobody was going to stop me.
The following year, he started his journalism studies at the Gauteng Technikon. But more stumbling blocks would hinder his progress. Tshamano's parents only had enough money for registration and a little more for food.
I relied on 200 rands pocket money that came from my mother. So you can just imagine 200 rands. What do you do with it? You buy, I don't know, eggs, you buy meal. So it gets finished quickly.
He knew self-pity wasn't going to get him anywhere. He chose to be proactive and began working for the campus radio station to earn pocket money. But as he soldiered on, Tshamano suffered 2 terrible blows. First, his brother was shot dead in 2000. And while he was mourning his loss, his father died of diabetic complications 6 months later. It meant Tshamano's mother faced the daunting task of looking after her children alone. But then, among all the sorrow, some good news. Tshamano received a full scholarship from a Johannesburg radio station, beating 2,000 applicants. He could now continue with his journalism studies.
that came as a huge relief, I tell you. My mother was very happy about it. I was really excited about it because I knew that this opportunity was definitely going to change my life for good.
And he was right. After graduating, doors opened up for the determined young man.
It was at that point in 2002 when I was at SABC, when I started approaching eTV, and I just got there. But of course, I had to knock first, and somebody gave me a call to say, look, you can come and state your case. Within a week's time, I received a phone call to say, yes, Makhadi, you can come, join us on Monday. And it was at that point when I joined eTV, and my life was never really the same.
After 5 fulfilling years with eTV, Tshamano walked out a multi-award-winning journalist. Almost unbelievable, since he once attended class under a tree. He later joined the Tshwane University of Technology to develop the next generation of news reporters.
It gives you what reality is about in terms of being in broadcasting or as a reporter. And I feel as though we need that because we can't just have the academic side of things.
Makhadi has taught us to be go-getters. When you go out there, do not necessarily compromise. Go out all out for what you want.
So it's a simple principle. If you are not going to do it today, when are you going to do it? And who must do it? So we all have a challenge as South Africans to make this country a better country.
Amazing. Send us your feedback and let us know what you think. Against all odds at eNCA.com. Still to come. How did a Gauteng street vendor build a business empire that creates hundreds of jobs?
News that moves. eNCA.com.